which would make his answer to Chuck Grassley's question in 2017, if that's what they've clearly indicted him about, doesn't really have anything to do with me. As far as Mr. Richmond is concerned, there were a number of leak cases opened by the FBI in 2017.
Welcome back to Unshaken Liberty, folks. I'm your host, Michael. And today, folks, we're diving into something that should make every American's blood boil. I just finished watching an interview with former FBI Deputy Director Andy McCabe, and let me tell you, it is a perfect example of why so many of us on the right have zero trust left in our so-called justice system. Now let's watch.
But today I do want to talk about your role at the FBI. Andy, have you, first of all, let's just start. Have you been contacted or interviewed by the FBI at all regarding this investigation into James Comey?
Yeah, not at all, Jake. I've not been contacted. I haven't been interviewed. They're not asked to interview me. And of course, if my interactions with Jim Comey 9 years ago in October 2016 was going to be the basis of this entire prosecution, it's unbelievable to think that prosecutors wouldn't at least want to sit down and hear what I had to say about it. Could potentially be a fact witness or just to understand what my perspective is, and that has never happened.
Yeah, I've seen others out there speculating that you're the person 3 named in the indictment as someone Comey allegedly authorized to leak information on his behalf. But a source familiar with the indictment told me that person 3 in the indictment is actually Comey's longtime friend, Columbia Law School professor Dan Richmond, who was also a special government employee at the FBI at the time. Is that your understanding as well, or do you not know?
Yeah, well, I mean, none of us know with great specificity because, as you said, the indictment really has no facts in it whatsoever. But as far as I'm concerned, I absolutely do not believe it's referring to me in any way. There's a couple of reasons for that. First, I never asked Jim Comey to authorize any disclosure to the media because I didn't have to. At that time in the FBI, there's only 2 people who had the authority to make that decision independently. One was Jim Comey and the other was me. It was something I did as a part of my job pretty routinely. So around that exchange in October, just that request never happened, which would make his answer to Chuck Grassley's question in 2017, if that's what they've clearly indicted him about, doesn't really have anything to do with me. As far as Mr. Richmond is concerned, there were a number of leak cases opened by the FBI in 2017. And at least one of those included several articles in which information about our investigations had appeared and potentially in an unauthorized, not in an officially authorized fashion. Mr. Richmond was interviewed and investigated as a part of those leak cases. I would expect that Jim Comey, and probably I, was also included in the initial list of potential suspects, as is very routine in leak cases. Every person who has access or had access to the information that is thought to have been leaked is included in that group of suspects initially. But those cases were all closed in 2020. So after 3 years of investigating, after interviewing Mr. Richmond, after no doubt looking at computer and telephone records from everyone who had access to that information, these cases were closed without any requests for indictments.
Yeah.
So the idea that they would use those cases now, all these years later, is bizarre.
Well, the source familiar with the indictment told me that it actually is in reference to what was called the Arctic Haze leak investigation, which deals with those 4 stories that you're referring to in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. Richmond was interviewed. Richmond denied that Comey authorized him to leak. But let me ask you just more broadly. The indictment says that Comey lied in 2017 and then again in 2020 when he was asked about the 2017 testimony, when he denied having ever, quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation, unquote. Given your experience with Comey, was he honest when he said he had never authorized a leak?
All I can say to that, Jake, is I'm not aware of Jim Comey ever authorizing some other person to leak information. That's not something I experienced personally. It's not something I saw in all the time I spent working around Jim Comey. So I can't sit here and characterize his testimony, which I think is far from clear enough to be the basis of a false statement or perjury prosecution. But nevertheless, all I can say is what my own experience revealed, and that is I didn't ever see Jim Comey authorizing other people to leak information.
You're an attorney. You spent more than 20 years at the FBI. What do you make of this indictment overall, especially in the context of President Trump exerting public pressure on the Attorney General, on the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia, in the sense that Eric Siebert got fired and replaced by Lindsey Halligan? What do you make of this all? And also his promise that he's going to go after, or he hopes that there will be other political opponents who face prosecution.
I mean, there's only one thing to make of it, Jake. It is absolutely what the president himself characterized it as. It's vengeance. This is the revenge tour. It's the tour he promised when he ran for office in 2024. It's what most of us who have fallen in his crosshairs before expected, and it's what we're seeing now. And I absolutely expect we'll see more people fall into the same sort of vindictive prosecutorial defense posture. And let me just say, Jake, I'll take you back to 2017, the beginning of the Trump administration, when President Trump started having his first interactions with Jim Comey, which really troubled us to the extent that Jim wrote those now infamous memos about it. And those first few interactions, we would talk about them after the fact. And we were almost naive in thinking, is this president actually trying to influence our investigative decision making? We didn't want to believe it. So we started almost contorting ourselves to make up other excuses for what we saw was happening. Well, we thought, well, he's never worked around prosecutors or the department before. He's not familiar with the norms of how we do this independently. That was until he came out and absolutely explicitly asked us to drop the case against Mike Flynn. It was one of these like watershed moments. Well, now fast forward to where we are today. Those requests aren't happening quietly between the president and the director of the FBI in the Oval Office. They're happening on social media. We can all see exactly what he's saying, what he intends to do. His intention is vengeance. And that is what he's going after. I don't think there's anything that'll stop him.
Are you worried that you're going to become a target?
Of course. Who wouldn't be, right? Anyone who worked in the FBI around those cases at that time has got to seriously consider that you might once again, and I've been here before, it's been going on with me for years. I was investigated baselessly in a criminal investigation for 2 years that ultimately collapsed under its own weight. I've been audited. I've been investigated by multiple special counsels, the IG, Senate Intelligence Committee, House Intelligence Committee. So that I expect that will continue. I'm absolutely confident in the work that we did. We weren't perfect, but we never committed a crime or did something intentionally wrong, intentionally misrepresented anything, never. So I'm not worried. I'm just kind of exhausted.
Andy McCabe, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
McCabe sat there claiming he hasn't been contacted about the James Comey indictment, brushing off speculation and basically painting himself as the innocent victim of some political vendetta. He even had the audacity to call President Trump's push for accountability a revenge tour. A revenge tour? No, Andy, it's called justice. It's called cleaning house after years of corruption at the highest levels of the FBI. Let's not forget, these people had no problem weaponizing leaks, investigations, and political pressure against Donald Trump, his campaign, and the American people. They spied, they leaked, and they lied. But when the tables finally turn, when they're the ones under the microscope, suddenly it's all about vengeance and political persecution. Classic deep state doublespeak. McCabe wants us to believe Comey never authorized leaks, never pulled strings, never bent the rules. Please. These guys were running their own operation behind closed doors, pushing narratives in the media to take down a sitting president. And the so-called leak investigations that were all conveniently closed in 2020 sounds to me like insiders protecting insiders. And now McCabe plays a victim card, whining about being investigated, audited, and tired of it all. Well, guess what, Andy? Regular hard-working Americans have been audited, spied on, and harassed by government bureaucrats for decades. You're not the victim here. You were part of the machine. Here's the truth. Donald Trump is not out for revenge. He's out to restore accountability. He's doing what the DOJ, the FBI, and Congress have refused to do, hold the elites in Washington responsible for their abuse of power. That's not vengeance. That's justice, plain and simple. This is why the American people elected Trump in 2016, why they backed him in 2020, and why they'll stand with him again. Because we're sick of unelected bureaucrats like McCabe and Comey thinking they're above the law while they trample all over our freedoms. So yeah, Andy McCabe can cry victim all he wants. The truth is, this is long overdue. Accountability is coming, and no amount of whining on CNN is going to stop it. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never forget, our liberty is unshaken.